Welcome back to Kelly Family Fitness. My name is Brian Kelly, and today we're going to go over the pistol squat. Now, there's a lot of variations of this exercise that can be scalable for anyone. And the biggest thing about this is teaching your legs to be independently strong is going to give you a lot more strength and stability in your lower body. You know, some people will liken running to even being like a bunch of repetitive little single leg knee extensions in a row. So it can have some functional carryover, and it doesn't have to be just a party trick. I like them because you have to integrate strength, length, and balance all in the same exercise. Some people have bad knees, and we're going to cover some stretches, some accessory work today. We're going to cover scaling options, so hang in there and hopefully you enjoy and learn something on this one. Now, the first biggest thing you need to understand in this motion is the lower you go, you're going to need more and more dorsiflexion. So we need the knee to be able to get past the toe without the heel coming up. As soon as the heel comes up, I always tell people to think of heel as your butt, toes as your knee when you're pressing into the ground. So I don't want to shift all my weight to my toes, letting my heel come off the ground. It's going to put all the pressure right on my joint. I need to be able to allow my knee to go past my toes with my foot flat on the ground. So it's going to take a decent amount of dorsiflexion to be able to do this. If you have tight calves or maybe a previous Achilles injury or weak knee joints, we're going to need some extra things along the way, and this is going to take you a little while longer. Not to fear, you can still unlock this move. I'm 45 years old. I just recently in the past 6 months started doing these on a regular basis. I don't think there's an age or limitation for anybody, but you're going to need to scale it and then do it as a slight gradual progression. I would like to point something out to you. I tell people this for a lot of different exercises. You don't want to force your body into a range of motion that it can't naturally get into. So in other words, I liken it on like the bench press. If you have somebody laid down on a bench press and with no weight at all, you have them pull their elbows to the floor and they can't get their hands below the height of their chest. In other words, if their finished position, if their shoulders stick before a bar would touch, they have no business taking a heavy amount of weight and bringing it all the way to their chest and forcing their joint into a range of motion it can't naturally get to. Going past a joint's end range of motion with weight is just asking for trouble. And the pistol squat's the same thing. If you can't naturally bend your knee all the way, then you don't want to drop with all your body weight into full flexion of your knee. If your goal is to get to that full position but you don't have the range of motion, spend a little bit more time on stretching. It's the best way to protect your joint. You need to have full range of motion in the joint before you force the motion with any kind of resistance. For me, this was huge. I needed to do a lot of ankle work, and my favorite has got to be band distracted stretching. It would technically be dorsiflexion. This is about a 1 3/4 inch band. I'm just going to loop it over a squat rack to make it nice and sturdy. Now this is going to seem like a big waste of time when you're just watching on the video, but you can't imagine how good this is going to make your feet feel. I want you to try this. Good tension, heavy band, anchored somewhere sturdy. We'll load it up heavy. And I want to go 2 minutes trying to just push my knee out past my toes. You can rock in and out of this. You can kind of floss the corners, whatever you want. Whatever you feel like you need is great, as long as we try to keep that heel down. I want to go another 1 to 2 minutes working inside and outside the foot as well. Now, why that seems like a lot I promise as soon as you do this, just do one foot, stand up, take a walk. You're going to be amazed at how different your foot hits the ground and the positive changes you've already gained in your ankle. This is huge because if we can't keep our heel down as our knee comes out over our toes, we're totally going to lose leverage, and you're going to have a really hard time getting this exercise down pat without hurting your knee. If you don't have access to a big jump stretch style band, another option is to use some kind of a heavy weight, be it a plate, a dumbbell, a kettlebell, whatever it may be, and we're going to put it right on top of your knee, which will serve to kind of hold the heel down as it helps you leverage your knee out over your toes. Now, along with some of the static and distracted type stretches, I also really like to exercise into range of motion with resistance. So I perform these long split squats with dorsiflexion, or even a long lunge with dorsiflexion on a regular basis before I pistol squat. And what I mean by that is, generally speaking, I would have somebody find a target. So box or a wall, something like that. And then set up into a long enough split squat that you're going to get some stretch on your ankle and on your back, hip flexor, and thigh. And from that position, where you're kind of long, you're going to drive your knee forward as your back knee drops, get into this big range of motion, and then press back out of it. Now, if it's not challenging, scoot back a little bit. Find where you're really working to reach. That's a little too far back, right about here. And then drive that knee forward. And this is going to kind of help standardize how far you go on each rep. So in other words, if you're at kind of the end of your range of motion, you're going to make sure that every rep counts. You don't want to be so far back that you have pain when you do this. And likewise, if it's not that hard for you and you have good range of motion, I also like to do these weighted. Now, they could easily be done with a resistance band kind of over your back and under your front foot. I tend to do them with dumbbells or barbells. High rate of concentration, usually 2 to 4 rep sets, and again, could be barbell, could be dumbbell. When I'm working with barbells, I'll do this out of back squat position, front squat, and the overhead squat. And you could easily turn this into a lunging motion, although those get a little trickier to come back out of. So dumbbells, barbells, whatever, body weight. Step long, lead the knee forward, and then it's really hard to get back from this position because my back foot has to almost collapse. So what I'll do is I'll push back to a lunge position and then press back out of it. Where do you start when you want to attempt one of these? So you've done the band distracted stretches on your ankle, you've done some of the long split squats with dorsiflexion, but where do you start the actual single leg squat? A good place to start is on a box. The single leg box squat's perfectly acceptable, and it's totally scalable. I'm sitting on a 20-inch box right now. When I teach people this, I give them just a couple of cues to think about. Number one, if your shin is straight up and down, you're not going to be able to get leverage on this. It's going to be impossible. So while that may be desirable for a deadlift or even some powerlifting type squats, we are looking for some dorsiflexion. Number two, the other leg should stay out in front. The longer and straighter you can keep it, the more leverage you're going to have, because this almost functions like a counterweight. So in other words, as I bend forward and kind of stick my butt out and drop my weight on my heel, this kind of helps keep everything centered and keeps me from tipping backwards. Number three, and this is the most important, heel must stay down. People, when they do these, will instinctively and automatically come down out of them. They'll lift their foot and they'll do it again, and they'll think that it's easy. And that's because you did make it easier. You need to keep your heel flat. You need to work this dorsiflexion position. You need to learn to find leverage throughout your whole foot while your knee is out in front of you. So I want you to kind of organize your spine a little bit, kind of stick your butt out a teeny bit, brace your abs, legs straight, arms probably out in front, drive your head up back down with control, stop, go again. Again, 2 to 4 rep sets. I usually do triples when I'm doing these. Now, if a 20-inch box is too hard, put some plates on it. Build it up, find the range of motion you can do, and over time, take those plates away as you get stronger, and then work on more and more depth. So the single leg squat off the box has gotten easy, or was easy for you. What's step 2? What's the next easiest one to do? In my opinion, the one that had the greatest carryover for me in terms of staging this motion was the eccentric pistol squat on top of the box. So in other words, I'm just gonna lower into my pistol position and then do a step up and reset. Now, by being on top of the box, I don't necessarily have to have the strength to hold my leg off the ground. It can hang down a bit. You will find this is challenging. For a lot of people, this pure hip flexion is much harder than you expect it to be. They'll even cramp up kind of in this quadrant here, like the TFL, the rec fem, everything just kind of lights up when they try to hold that knee straight and pull from kind of like their lower abs and hip flexors. So, the box is going to give you a tremendous advantage on that. You set it up, anything that elevates you off the ground would work, but the box is nice. You leave your foot on the side of the box. You're going to try to position it out in front, but basically you're just working on the lowering phase of the other leg. You get to where you can go to, it doesn't have to be all the way down. You put a foot down and you step back up and reset. And slow and steady, working that motion until it gets fluid. Again, 2 to 3 rep sets. You may even find that your knees are not even. Maybe one leg is stronger than the other. Maybe, and this is the case for a lot of people when they try a single leg squat, their knee is gonna roll in. And that can be a factor of a lot of things. It could be in your ankle, could be a weakness in your hip on the outer abductors, could be tightness on your inner thighs. The biggest thing is trying to keep that patella centered. I always tell people center with your second toe. If you can keep your kneecap centered with your second toe, you're gonna be in alignment. If you're struggling with that, the nice thing about the box is you can pull into it with the down leg. So if my leg goes out this way, my knee is gonna naturally roll in. But if I pull into the box, it automatically is gonna kick my knee out to the outside of my body to help line me up. Once I'm in this down position, again, I just do a step up and I reset it. First couple tests went well, and now we go to the ground. Full pistol squat, foot and knee straight ahead. Other leg is straight. I like my knee locked. Some people will kind of throw a leg out to the side and kind of bent and just kind of collapse into these. I like a little bit more control. Legs are kind of scissored together. Slowly, control, press. Other side. Now, I'm not sure anybody's knees, anybody's bodies are going to like 50 or 100 pistol squats in a row, or at least in a given training session. So from my approach, I treat these as a movement where I'm trying to get stronger at them. And as long as I have proficiency and good form, I start adding weight from here. All right, this big dude is only gonna make the video if I actually get through this without crash and burn. It's a 28 kilo. I think that puts it around 62 pounds. It's just badass, so it deserves an effort. Let's see. This is very heavy for me. Low expectations. We'll give it some effort. Okay, if you stuck with me this long, hopefully you'll stick with me a little bit longer. I'm going to show you a little bit of my accessory work that I do to make this motion overall more accessible to me. Primarily, I think the ability to extend your knee plays a huge role in this. So we need to be able to bend the knee full range of motion to allow the joint to have proper range of motion. But then to get back up out of that position in the bottom of the squat, we need to be able to extend our knee pretty proficiently. I really like the poor man's knee extension for that. Now, generally speaking, you would start it out of kind of a tall kneeling stance, though I'm sure it would work on flat feet if you have trouble bending your toes back. On the poor man's knee extension, you want to try not to hinge at your hips. So this one is going to drop all the way back while you're trying to hold your upper body in alignment. So, chest is out, arms are forward, chin is down. We're focused on the horizon line. Slowly, leading head and shoulders back first, we're going to drop back, bending our knees, and then push our feet into the ground and return to the start position. Again, we're trying not to bend at the waist as we come back up. It's natural, but the goal is to try to stay really rigid when you're doing these. I tend to do 5 rep sets here. And I try to work a big range of motion. I will also, even though I'm pretty good at these, work into an even bigger range of motion with a light banded spot. And I recommend doing them this way because a lot of people get kind of greedy on this motion and they will compensate naturally and kind of take their body out of the proper form. The band kind of gives you security to go back a little bit further and kind of take your time coming out of position. So, light banded spot, dropping back, chin down, and then return using your toes into the ground and extending your knees, trying really hard not to bend at the waist. Now, if you're somebody that battles with their knee rolling in as soon as they start to drop into position, it could be an issue of strength in your abductors of your hip. I love exercises as simple as just like a clamshell, laying on your side in fetal position. But a lot of times people will kind of rock their pelvis back as they lift their knee, and it's not the right form. A good, easy, strict way to work on abduction of the hip is in a quadruped, or more like a beast stance. Mini band, hip circle, goes around the knees, right around the front of them. From that position, hands and knees, toes curled towards shins. Arms directly under the shoulders, abs braced. Barely push your knees off the ground. And then from here, abduct the hips. Little pause on each one. Taking your time, keeping your abs braced so you can tie your not only your rectus abdominis, but even your obliques really play a huge role when your knees go away from midline of your body. So it really ties your obliques and your outer hips, which makes it not only healthy, but just kind of proper programming for your body. On these quadruped motions, I'll do like 10 to 15 rep sets, usually 2 to 3 sets in an exercise session. I can't tell you exactly how much of a percentage your adductors help you with the single leg squat, but I can tell you that most people's are too tight and too weak. The one that I really like, the exercise for the adductors that I use on a regular basis, is an isometric. It's called a Copenhagen Plank. This could be done straight arm out of almost a T-stand position, or it could be done on your elbow in kind of a side plank position. I tend to do T-stand. I'll put my top leg on a bench, arm directly under my shoulder, line up my body so that that's a straight line from my shoulders to hips to heel, go to a runner position, and then line my neck up. And I'll hold this for 15-second sets. And as I'm doing that, I want my foot to stay pretty neutral so that I'm pushing with my greater toe and kind of the inside of my arch and the inside of my heel down into the bench with that straight leg. These are surprisingly difficult. They could be done a little bit more dynamically. You can add motion to them, or you could even bring the bottom leg up and down and kind of hug the bench. I like that isometric hold in the runner stance. I find that it's a good way to tie my core in, and I think it has a teeny bit of athletic carryover in that you're kind of working that running position where you're one knee up and a hand up. You know, you're kind of opposites, just like your running motion would be here. I like that carryover. I like that crossover there. Now, range of motion can be affected by strength and length. You have to kind of picture agonist-antagonist relationships in the body. So in other words, if I flex my bicep, my tricep kind of has to stretch to accommodate that. And likewise, if I squeeze my tricep tight, my bicep will lengthen too. If you really want to get some range of motion in your ankles, just stretching them isn't really enough. You also want to try to strengthen that anterior tibialis. Easiest way to do that is with dorsiflexion or toe pulling type motions. You could do them body weight. There are tib bars you can buy online. I do them with just a jump stretch band, literally just around the toes, scoot back for tension, and then keeping the big toes together and the knees relatively straight, just work on pulling the toes back. Your feet tend to be used to fairly high repetition, so with stuff like this, I tend to do like 20 to 30 rep sets. But I do try really hard to keep my feet as neutral as possible so that I'm not just pulling with big toes or with my pinkies. I got one more strengthener I'm going to show you. And this goes back to almost a gymnastics style of strength training. They do a lot of positions out of compression and almost like pike, where your straight legs are in front of you and you're kind of folded down towards them. This is a great abdominal motion, but it also will help strengthen the thighs and help you pull from your hip flexors and from your abdominals. So, these off. So, straight legs, toes pointed, lean forward slightly. The idea is to not rock back on your hands, but from this position, kind of hollowing out and practicing these seated compression leg lifts really help you build the strength to kind of hold that thigh out in front of you. So if you try these on the ground and you try to hold your leg out in front of you and it keeps dropping to the floor, this might be an answer. You could also do straddle leg lifts, which are absolutely miserable. I really struggle with those, but they are even more direct on those hip flexors. So any kind of compressed leg lift will really help you work on those muscles that hold the leg out in front of you as you're dropping into that pistol squat. Some of you that have some tendonitis around your knees are going to really struggle, even by stretching, you're going to really struggle with bending that knee into end range of motion. And you've got options to work with on this. One of the fastest bang for your buck options is kind of a soft tissue, like an active release technique, where you could smash with a barbell. You could use something lighter if this is too much, but I tend to start people off with a barbell, and all you do is elevate one side so that the barbell can pass over the other leg, and then very slowly, starting right at the top of the patella. This is where people are very sensitive here. They also tend to be kind of mid-quad, and as they get up toward their hip flexor, they find multiple spots. And after multiple passes, they'll even find new spots. But this barbell smash, where very slowly, you're almost using this like a rolling pin, and you can kind of use the weight of the barbell as it kind of massages. I'll use the word massage lightly because it's a pretty aggressive massage. But you can kind of work out some of the tight spots in your quads and in your patellar tendon really quickly with just 10 slow passes on this barbell. To see if it'll help, I always have people try like 10 bodyweight squats and just kind of get a barometer for how much that bothers their knees. And then we'll have them make 10 passes on their sore knee. So up to their thigh and back to their knee is one pass. They'll do 10 passes, slow, nice and easy, just like I'm doing here. And then they'll do 10 more squats. And if this helped them alleviate some of their pain and get a little bit more flexion in their knee, then we start doing this kind of stuff on a regular basis. Like as soon as they walk in the gym, they do this stuff. Just to kind of get everything loosened up and operating correctly. So if you have really tight, sore knees, this might be a solution for you. If you want something less aggressive, there are a couple different quad stretches that I really like. First one being the half kneeling quad stretch. Now in this one, most people need a little bit of balance. So what you want to do is the stretch side goes to the outside of a rack or a bench. Lunge position. This way we have a spot. Pull back heel to butt and hold. This would be kind of a variation of a couch stretch that's not quite as aggressive or hard. If that one doesn't work for you, you could take this kind of almost like a half kneeling stretch or a half kneeling position, and then from here, pull your back leg toward your heel and gradually kind of slide the back leg back. That's another option for you. Hopefully one of them will work. If not, you may have to scale it back to just standing against the wall and practice pulling your heel toward your butt and gradually make the progressions. Keep in mind that barbell smash though has a really quick turnaround. You could also even do like a voodoo band, a flossing band, where you would wrap just above your knee and then just below your knee, bend to 90 and then full extension would be another great way to do it. If you needed strength work because maybe you're recovering from an injury or you've always had a problem with the knee, terminal knee extension might be another great option for you. Last one I'm going to leave you with as far as the stretches, I love the seated calf stretch. And I find a surprising number of people that cannot do it. I have certain standards that I think people need to be able to hit to do weightlifting, any kind of weightlifting, without injury to their joint. And a good example for that is laying on your back and with a straight leg, with two straight legs, being able to bring one up to about 90 degrees. Generally, I look at that as just kind of a base for proper hamstring length. Now, people are going to argue that, but they'll argue anything, especially online. But this seated calf stretch, to me, is a minimum. And I think that everybody should be able to do it for proper lengthening in their ankles and calves. And a surprising number of people cannot do it. But this one can be made a lot of progress on quick. Just start out with your knees bent, get a handful of shoe, lengthen your heels out away from you and touch the ground. If you can't do that, what you do, you could put paper plates or towels or sliders under your heels even to make it easier. But you come out to where you get a nice stretch, hold that 10, 15, 20 seconds, bring it back, try it again, bring it back. You could do it single leg if you needed to, but gradually, if you do this every day for 2 weeks, you'll flatten right out. And that to me is just a base level of lengthening in the hamstring and calf. Keep in mind, part of the calf attaches above the knee and the hamstring attaches below. So there is a major interaction here between tight calves and tight hamstrings. That is just a base level of lengthening that I think you need in your lower body for a lot of exercises. So I hope you liked today's video. I hope it wasn't too long. Maybe you learned something. Post any questions down below, like, subscribe. You know, that's what this is all about, is trying to build some kind of a social presence out there to kind of build my own business. So you could thank me if you learned something in this just by subscribing to my channel. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next one.